Oh, I should have mentioned at the very beginning. We're specifically talking about the multiplayer. We're, I mean, I can have that in the title, right? Yeah, but we're specifically talking about the multiplayer. We're not talking about the campaign. We are not talking about Spec Ops. We are not talking about zombies. We're specifically talking about the multiplayer. Because if we were including any of that stuff, this list would be completely different. But since we're not including that stuff, we're specifically talking about the multiplayer. This is the list I have. Hello, everyone. And before we even get started, I want to say that this video is just completely 100% my own opinion, and you will almost certainly have a different list than me in one way or another. You may have a completely different list. I know just by looking at Birdman's video, because that's what I got inspired to make this. Looking at his video, we very much disagree on literally every game in order, but in general we have some agreements, but there are some major disagreements that we have. But once again, I'll try to justify my opinion on some of the things and give some background of my opinions. Now, let me specifically say I am not a Call of Duty, fan or Call of Duty pro. I mostly play the game casually and I do not ever sweat in the game. I just hop on, play it a couple of times a week, and then hop off. I mostly play it casually. So, me not being a hardcore fan, keep that in mind. Also, I am not really that good at the games. I'm not really good at any of them, but I'm definitely better at some than others. And also, for some of these, not a lot of these, but for some of these Call of Duties, I did not buy them the year that they came out. So you have to take into consideration that I have had other experiences and other games since they came out. So this is 100% just my experience with the game and not necessarily the complete list of which game is best, right? All right, so with that long intro out of the way, let's discuss the worst to best Call of Duties of the 2010s or of the last decade. Now, I actually wrote this list in order from best to worst, so I'm interested to see how I'm going to take this. Let's just start at the very bottom of the list. Number 10, Advanced Warfare. Yes, this game came out in 2014, but I did not play it until almost a year later, or over a year later. I don't remember when Advanced Warfare came out, but I did not play it until 2015, specifically October of 2015. As far as the map goes, it is easily my least favorite and least enjoyable experience that I've had in any Call of Duty, which is saying something because I really do not like Modern Warfare. But there are a lot of good things that I do like about Modern Warfare, as there's really not that much I like about Advanced Warfare. The maps, they were okay. Overall map flow and map balance was okay. It wasn't awful, but at the same time, you can tell that some of the maps were definitely not designed with jetpacks in mind. Some of them were, but there are some flank routes that are so obvious when you use them with jetpacks, but are so, like, you would kind of miss them if you weren't thinking about them. Now, of course, this isn't necessarily an issue, like as far as Black Ops 4, where it is much more apparent because they originally were going to have jetpacks in that game, but it's overall pretty okay. The overall balance was absolutely garbage. It made no sense why, with all the perks and all the attachments and everything, right? That when I say balance, I'm including everything. I'm talking about perks, weapons, everything, except for the maps. When I talk about balance, I'm specifically talking about the game to game, the play by play balance, and not on a specific map. But the overall balance was pretty garbage. I would say probably the worst, considering that only a handful of weapons were viable. And I'll get to that in just a moment. There's some pretty good innovation from this game. There was some good innovation, but it was mostly bad. I would say one of the really good innovations, which is something I'll get into, is the changes to the kill streaks. I think that's really, really cool. This game also was the first game that, at least that I played, that actually had some pretty decent customization. Oh, by the way, um, I just want to mention before we get too far into it, I do not have a lot of experience with Ghost. I played it only a handful of times. And I have not played Call of Duty World War II, so that will not be on this list. I have never played it, so I have no opinions on it. I just don't know anything about it. But, well, I know quite a bit about it just from what other people say, but I have no personal experience. I never touched the beta. I never touched the game whatsoever. So just to keep that in mind. So that won't be on the list. However, Modern Warfare, we'll get into Modern Warfare Remaster when we get into it. Um, the introduction of supply drops, the microtransactions, the futuristic gameplay, they were all a troubling start. First off, getting into the supply drops, this one was probably the second worst case of supply drops, where the supply drops were stat altering, but they were randomized. So you would pay for a randomized chance of getting an improvement to your weapons. um, and I would say this is really probably the second worst. It theoretically should be the worst first because of the sheer amount of different possible weapons that could be improvements. However, I gotta say, for the most part, even looking back at it, for the most part, a lot of the weapon variants were relatively balanced. Yes, I think it is stupid how they had these weapon variants that changed your stats and you couldn't get them unless if you paid money or you played the game a whole bunch, which I did not. However, at the end of the day, a lot of these were just actually relatively balanced, but there were quite a few that really stuck out. Bal 27. I don't even remember the name of the Bal variant, Obsidian Steed. I think it was infamously overpowered and ridiculous. That should not be in a supply drop because that gun is way too good. But I will say, the variants themselves are a great idea. The fact that they're blocked behind supply drops that are randomized is the issue. The futuristic gameplay, this is the first game that went into the future, right? We started adding lasers, but they weren't the most extreme version. Actually, I would say they're the most extreme version of lasers. Like this is the only game that has like literal lasers, I think. I don't remember if Infinite Warfare or Black Ops 3 had like literal lasers, but I don't think they did. I know they had energy weapons, but not like literally laser shooting weapons like straight out of Halo. Um, as far as the weapons go, a lot of them were kind of basic E. And for a game that was going really far into the future, I was thinking that maybe they would have some really interesting weapons, but they're kind of just mostly lame, if I have to be honest. But at the same time, they brought back some weapons from Call of Duty Ghost, like the Bulldog, I think, or maybe not. I don't know. I know the Atlas, I think. Not the Atlas, or maybe it is. I just know for a fact that they brought some weapons, the Lynx, right? They brought some weapons from Ghost. I know that for a fact. I just can't remember which ones. I specifically hate the jetpacks in this game. I consider them to be the worst. I mean, this is my worst game. Honestly, this is my worst game of Call of Duty history, right? Like, I say these are the worst games of the decade, but it is, spoiler alert, the worst game of the history because none of the games from before really were that bad. And this is out of the games I played. Obviously, I haven't played every single Call of Duty. I've only played Call of Duties 2, 3, Final Fronts, and 4 through World War II, skipping out World War II, and all the ones after that. So, sorry, I just have so much I want to talk about in this video. But the point is, I specifically hate the jetpacks in the game. It is way too hard, and the jetpacks were not balanced in any way whatsoever for the weapons, and it makes most of the weapons 100% obsolete. Snipers, absolutely useless. LMGs, redundant. Really, the only things that were viable were, and the pistols too. Pistols, crossbow, grenade launchers, any type of launchers. All of them were just useless. And there was some really cool stuff, but just all of it was useless. The only things that were viable were the assault rifles and the SMGs, and some of the shotguns. Because getting in close range, some of them were really good. Like I think it was the TAC 45 which I believe is based off of the UTS 1415. Some of them were actually pretty good. And especially because of the fast movement and the, quick reflexes, some of the shotguns were good. But sniper rifles were not good. You could theoretically use them, but the movement was so fast, unless if you were a really experienced player, you weren't going to get away with using them. That's just kind of a fact. There were some really interesting and cool attachments in this game. But the problem is that some of them was one of them in particular is the worst attachment to add to this game, as in like out of all the attachments you could have added this out of all the games you could have added this attachment to, this is by far the worst game. I'm specifically talking about the autofocus sight. This sight allows you to see further if you stand still. Yeah, that's right. Standing still in the game with jetpacks and very fast and fluid motion that requires you to be as fast and agile as possible, they have an attachment where you should stand still. Good luck using it and actually doing anything effective with it. If anybody, if you get a kill with the autofocus sight when it's zoomed in, most likely it's a fluke because that's just ridiculous. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you can't camp in this game, but at the same time, literally not moving at all whatsoever, that's ridiculous. The utilities in this game were actually really cool. There were some that made you invisible, some that made you faster, some that, I think gave you a ping area of effect, but they just were a little lackluster, and some of them were made completely useless, once again, thanks to the use of jetpacks. Oh man, and the lethals, man. Some of them were once again really cool. The grenade, the spike drone, but the jetpacks made it really hard to actually hit your targets. One thing I would say the only good thing I really, really liked about this Call of Duty, and I would love for it to come back, were the customizable kill streaks. In this game, you could add specific attachments to your kill streaks, and sometimes the attachments would make the kill streaks be, last longer or shorter times. Now, technically, this came back in Infinite Warfare, but I don't want another system with. And I'll get into Infinite Warfare, but yeah, I don't like that system. But man, I really like the Advanced Warfare system. I think it is really cool, and I really want it to come back someday. Overall fun factor, 2 out of 10. This is by far the least enjoyable Call of Duty. I kind of wish it was never made because all it did was start the trend of the futuristic Call of Duties, which were definitely not my favorite. And I would say this Call of Duty probably lost touch with what made the series great the most. Even Infinite Warfare, who went super duper, super ridiculously far into the future, was still had some, originality in it as far as the weapons go. But once again, we'll talk about Infinite Warfare when we get to it. This game is just, a worse version of Call of Duty Ghosts with mostly not that great maps and mostly same-ish weapons, but some lasers in it, right? And the jetpacks, man. I hate the jetpacks in that game. Number 9, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019, the new one. Obviously, it came out in 2019, as I just said. First time I played it was also in 2019 because I'm making this video in 2019. So that's the earliest time it can be. The maps are absolutely dreadful. They are the worst maps in any Call of Duty I've ever seen, and I cannot believe that they actually got approved by people who played the game. What the hell were they thinking with these maps? I would be compelled to see somebody try and give me a convincing argument for a game that has worse maps. Maybe I'll give you Ghosts. I'll give you Ghost. But at the end of the day, at least Ghost's map design, as bad as it was, at least Ghost's map design didn't, basically intrude on the way that you were supposed to be able to play the game from a basic standpoint, right? But if you say Ghost maps are worse, I actually understand that. I can believe you. But I personally believe Modern Warfare's maps are way worse. The only maps that aren't that bad are Shoot House, Vacant, Crash. No, Crash sucks. Shoot House, Vacant, and what? No, actually, I would say Crash. Yeah, no, Crash. Grozny Raid is a particularly bad map, especially, which is funny because, but looking at it, it kind of reminds me of a combination between the Modern Warfare 3 map Fallen and the Call of Duty 4 map Overgrown. But yeah, most of the maps absolutely terrible. The balance was bad. Not the worst in the game. No, not the worst in the entire series. Obviously, that goes to Advanced Warfare. But the balance was pretty bad. Pretty much only the M4 and the 725 were really that good. But there were quite a few weapons that you could actually do some work with, and they were okay, right? Obviously, with balancing changes that are probably going to come soon, we'll probably see these weapons being nerfed and buffed appropriately. But yeah, the FR, the FAMAS, I'm just going to call it the FAMAS and the 725 and the M4 definitely took the show as the powerhouse weapons that they are. But that doesn't mean that, all the other weapons were completely not viable. Unlike in Advanced Warfare, a lot of the weapons you could still use. It's just those guns were so prominent that they kind of stole the show. As far as the weapon play, the innovation is pretty good as far as, overall innovation, right? In comparison to Black Ops 4, there was quite a few innovations, which we'll get into, but I would say, like, first off, the return of a campaign is nice. I hated Blackout, and once again, we'll get into Blackout later. But man, I would have really preferred a campaign, especially from Black Ops 4, which would have been really interesting because I didn't hate, but I didn't really like the Black Ops 3 campaign. And I think having Black Ops 4 with a campaign that gives us more information on actually what happened between Black Ops 3 and Black Ops 4. Because if you don't remember, Black Ops 4 takes place in the very far future, like 2065. Black Ops 3 takes place in the very far future, 2065, I think. Black Ops 4 takes place less far in the future, in like 2045 or whatever. So, it's like right in between Black Ops 2 and Black Ops 3. So, being able to actually figure out what the hell happened, why none of the characters from Black Ops 2 are in Black Ops 3, and, having a nice transition that would have filled in some of the gaps would have been really nice. But instead, no, we get a shitty ass Blackout that is easily my least favorite battle royale experience out of any battle royale experience. Seriously, even Fortnite, actually every one of them, PUBG, Fortnite, every Realm Royale, right? All of them are better than Blackout, and I am surprised that people genuinely. What really surprised me is that the Act Man of all people considers Blackout to be his favorite battle royale mode. Really? It is the worst. Hell, even Battlefield 5, extremely underwhelming Firestorm, as bad as that is, I still consider that to be more fun. And to be fair, it might just be because I suck at it, but at least, there's just so much I don't like about it, like the time to kill and all that stuff, right? And you know what? That's besides the point. I just started rambling about Blackout. This is a video about this portion of this video is about Modern Warfare. I need to talk about Modern Warfare. Anyways, like I said, the weapons are really good and extremely detailed as far as, how they look, right? The weapons are great. The amount of weapons is pretty decent. Not the best, but obviously as a vast improvement compared to Black Ops 3 and 4. Once again, never played World War II, so I can't comment on that. But yeah, the amount of weapons is good. The weapons are great. As far as their visual and the sounds, the sounds are absolutely fantastic. The perks are kind of meh. They're okay, but not the best. The kill streaks for Modern Warfare are really fun. I like them. Solid kill streaks. I wish there was more of them, and the lack of kill streaks is disappointing. But at the same time, the kill streaks we do have are pretty solid. But I do wish there were more. The amount of special and unique attachments is awesome. There is a whole wide range of different attachments that you can use. Every gun has a completely different selection of attachments, and luckily, for most of in most of cases, the barrel and the stock and sometimes the magazine completely change the look of the weapon. I mean, technically everything changes the look of the weapon, but they can change what kind of weapon you're using. For example, with the AK-47, if you remove the stock, you give it a shorter barrel, and you change the ammunition type to 5.45, then you have the AK-74U. If you keep the barrel length and the stock, you have the AK-74 essentially. If you change it to a 75 round drum mag and give it a longer barrel, you have the RPK. And if you replace that longer barrel with the Romanian barrel and give it the field LMG stock, then you essentially have the PMMD. Granted, that's just one example for one gun, right? It's really cool, right? Probably another example, Holger 26. That's essentially the MG36 in real life. Give it a shorter barrel, change the stock, and give it a 30 round magazine. You have the G36C. I really wish that you could transform the Uzi into the mini Uzi and the micro Uzi. Man, that would have been nice. Or if you could change the EBR 14 into like an M1 Garand style weapon, man, that would have been amazing. But regardless of those two things, once again the amount of attachments is overwhelmingly apparent, and it's really good. I like that. The amount of attachments is a good thing, right? However, the lack of I'm sorry, this is a good thing. The lack of supply drops and free DLC weapons is a nice breath of fresh air. There's so many good things going for this game, right? And it sounds good. And to be fair, if Modern Warfare fixes the issues that here's the thing, right? Other than the maps, a lot of the issues with Modern Warfare can be fixed with updates. And the game has a lot of potential, and I really think it could be the best. But right now, it's the second worst, and I really don't enjoy the game experience. But we'll get into that in just a moment. However, I do want to say that once again, the lack of supply drops and free DLC weapons as of me recording this is really good to hear. I am glad that they are sticking to their word. From the way it looks, the weapons are going to be free and they're going to be relatively easy to get, and you can get them from the season pass or the battle pass looking thing. And I think that I don't like that system. And I think that if you don't do it within a certain amount of time, the weapons are locked away forever. But the fact that you get them in custom games is a really nice change. So, bad stuff. Essentially, what it comes down to is camping, but let's specifically talk about all of the issues revolving around it. The map design, which means the map design is awful, right? As I mentioned, right? Absolutely dreadful, because you can get shot from like 90 different directions when you're trying to go. Like, for example, on Grozno Raid, if you go into the field area, there's just no cover, and there's so many different directions. There's like 6 different alleyways that you can get shot from. And granted, sure, that means that those are different directions that you can shoot at, but at the same time, you're more likely to get shot from one of those 90 different possible directions you could be looking, right? Oh, and the way they changed the doors, I do like the way they changed the door, but the way the doors function. But at the same time, it makes it really hard to push into a room, because the guy could just be camping behind the door with a claymore, and you wouldn't know until you go open into the door. Oh man! But I do like the door system. I just wish that it was modified slightly. But anyways, there's a whole bunch of different contributions. So, like I said, the map design, the return of kill streaks, mounting weapons, or the ability to mount weapons, the high recoil weapons, the loud ass footsteps, claymores with restock, and the sit rep or whatever it's called not working properly, as well as dead silence being a field upgrade, the changes to the minimap, realistic but extremely hard to see through environments, meaning that the fog is so heavy that seeing people from a distance is really hard unless if you have a high quality screen or you're able to get up really close to it, putting you at an actual disadvantage if you don't. And the attachments that incentivize you to not move as much all contribute to an extremely heavy camping meta, which completely ruins the fun of the game, and are all major issues. That's the core of the issues, right? All of those things I just said combined lead to 90% of people not playing the game properly and just camping because so many different game design decisions specifically reward you for doing it. Now, there are some other things, like some of the attachments actually make you go faster, and some of the attachments disincentivize you from camping. And also the tactical sprint, giving you a big boost of speed, but giving you a lower, ADS time. Once again, kind of inspires you to rush a little bit, or at least to be more careful about your positioning. But at the same time, there's so many other different factors that lead to camping, and it's just awful. However, there are some really great things like Gunfight and Gunfight OSP. Absolutely amazing. I love it, and it is so far the only thing I really like about Advanced War or Modern Warfare. Sorry, I really like Gunfight and Gunfight OSP because it's it's pure skill, and all of the camping is shortened to a small distance. Sure, you can camp in it, but it's totally fine, and to me, it's fair, and I really enjoy it. The visuals, the sounds, and the movement are all phenomenal. And when I say movement, I mean like the way that the movement in the game, like your control, like control as far as movement goes. And the night vision and realism modes are really cool, but result in even more camping because once again they kind of incentivize you to camp a lot. Um, but at the same time, depending on your attachments, in some ways, night vision mode kind of stops you from camping because you have the big laser that makes you vulnerable. But for the most part, it still kind of incentivizes camping. But there are some positives to it. Night vision for by itself, though, really cool. I like it, and it's not just a green filter like it was in Call of Duty 4. But Ground War sucks, and I hate it. The overall fun for this game is a solid 5 out of 10. There's a lot of really, really fun things I really like about the game. However, most of the game is absolutely dreadful, and I cannot play the game because it sucks, and I do not enjoy my experience playing the game. However, Gunfight OSP is so good that it gave it a solid 5 out of 10. Gunfight and Gunfight OSP alone pretty much gave it a 5 out of 10, if I have to be real, because maybe that's not necessarily true, but those specific modes are so fun and unique, and I really like them a lot, as you can tell. All right, the last one that we're doing for this video, because I'm going to split this video into multiple parts, because, my lord, we have already spent how long? We have already spent 30 minutes, and I have not even gotten to number 3. I haven't even gotten to number 7. Like, this is ridiculous. Christ. But Call of Duty Ghost. This game originally came out in 2013, and I haven't played it until 2014, so I played it a year after it came out. Just as a spoiler warning, right, for the next few videos, for Call of Duty Black Ops 3, it's very important that I mention, and I'm going to mention it again when that video comes out, but I want to mention, because it's important, that for Call of Duty Black Ops 3, I did not play that game until 2017, but I did play Infinite Warfare when it came out. So for me, specifically, with my specific experience, I played Infinite Warfare first, and then I played Black Ops 3. And that will be extremely relevant when we start to actually talk about that stuff. But, right now, we have to talk about Ghost, which honestly I don't have a lot of experience with, but I'm going to include in this video. Actually, I might talk about Black Ops 4 just because I have so little to say about this game, because I haven't really played it that much. Call of Duty Ghost. This game, like I said, came out in 2013. I didn't play it until a year later in 2014. Overall, though, the maps are bad. Pretty much the worst in this. I would actually say the maps are awful. I would say that. And once again, if you say that if you say that Ghost has the worst maps, I don't blame you. I personally think Modern Warfare 2019 has the worst maps, but man, it's crazy to think this was the company that made Modern Warfare 2, the game with easily the best and most interesting maps. However, every Modern Warfare game since Modern Warfare 3 has had just absolutely bad and terrible maps for the most part. And Modern Warfare 3 itself didn't have great maps, but at least it was better than, all the games that came after it. The overall balance was pretty bad. The game, once again, highly incentivized a specific type of play, and punished you if you did not specifically follow these types of play. Those types of play being camping with thermals. However, it wasn't the worst thing in the world, right? Innovation was awful. The game was really just a worse version of Modern Warfare 3. The game looked worse than Modern Warfare 3. The gameplay, loop was essentially, once again, Modern Warfare 3, but worse. And to be fair, um, you know, a lot of people say Modern Warfare 3 is the same as Modern Warfare 2. And that's fair, right? I personally like Modern Warfare 2 more than Modern Warfare 3, but at the end of the day, I can at least accept that Modern Warfare 3 is essentially Modern Warfare 2.5, and it's, at the end of the day, it's pretty much just a more refined, more balanced version of Modern Warfare 2 on worse maps. That's what Modern Warfare 3 is to me. It also adds a couple of nice, unique features, which we'll get into once I talk about the, once I get into like the top 5, right? But for now, I have to just say that, the innovation in comparison to Black Ops 2, it was a downgrade in so many different ways, right? Like Black Ops 2 had so many cool and unique features. It had a great campaign, it had zombies, it had all this stuff, right? And we're not talking about that stuff, but I just want to take into comparison, right? Comparing Call of Duty Ghost to Black Ops 2, it's kind of like comparing Halo 4 to Halo 3. And we're going to specifically skip Reach, right? But like compare Halo 4 to Halo 3. That's essentially what you're doing when you're comparing Black Ops 2 to Ghost. It was pretty much worse in every way, and a lot of the stuff that they added would eventually be removed because it sucks. I would say really the only good things were search and rescue, if I have to be honest. The weapons were, however, mostly balanced. I will say that, right? Like the perk balance was stupid, and I hated the perk system, and the kill streaks, they all sucked. But the weapons were mostly balanced. There were a couple of standouts. Oh my god, there's that one weapon. I can't remember the name of it, but there was that one like burst weapon that was like overpowered when the game first came out. But they fixed that really quickly. And overall, the game is just really good and really fun. However, the time to kill, or sorry, no. However, the game just looks, like I said, the game just looks awful. It looks bad. It has a gray filter. It looks worse than Modern Warfare 3, and I get going for a gritty style, but you can go for a gritty style without making the game look like absolute garbage. Case in point, Modern Warfare. Modern Warfare is super duper duper gritty. However, it doesn't look like absolute garbage. Wow, look at that, right? The time to kill was actually pretty good. I would say Call of Duty Ghost has a pretty decent and I like the time to kill. It's not my favorite. My favorite still probably goes to Modern Warfare 3 as far as time to kill. But, the time to kill was overall pretty good in Ghost. I'm not going to lie. Like I said, Search and Rescue is a great addition. Gameplay is somewhat smooth, but the hit detection was a little bit iffy. Not the worst hit detection, which I would probably throw to Black Ops 2, but overall, though, the hit detection, it worked and it didn't, right? What I can really say, which I didn't actually write down, but I want to just talk about it anyways, what's kind of interesting is the dynamic map elements, which were cool, and it was, I kind of liked it, but at the same time, for some of the stuff, there's no reason not to do it. Like, for example, I remember specifically on this one area where there's like a gas station, right? There's no real reason not to shoot down the gas station immediately because sure, you have the potential of getting a kill, but since everybody knows that's a mechanic, everybody avoids it. All it really does is add more danger to you if you forget about it. It's kind of just dumb. There's also an area where like a train car is on the edge and you could shoot the train car, but like nobody goes back there because everybody knows the risks of being back there. Like although they were interesting in theory, they did not compete to what Black Ops 4, what Battlefield 4 had to offer, which came out the same year. To be fair, Call of Duty Ghosts was more playable than Battlefield 4 when it first came out, but that doesn't excuse Call of Duty Ghosts for its lame, repetitive, and boring gameplay decisions. But I will say though, the dynamic map elements were kind of cool, and I hope they return in some way, shape, or form, right? But just not in the way they returned in that game. Just goddamn, that was so stupid. Camping was overly prevalent thanks to the terrible maps. The maps, like I said, were pretty bad, either second or first worst, depending on how you look at it, at least for me. And I gotta say, the lack of content, a lack of original content, the changes to the kill streaks and the overall map designs, they were all issues that compounded together. All that being said, I would still say this game was overall as fun as Modern Warfare. And I give it a solid 5 out of 10. It was extremely average. It was a downgrade according to, like, I would say this, right? If Modern Warfare didn't have gunfight, I would say that Ghost would be better than Modern Warfare, and it would be more fun if Modern Warfare didn't have gunfight. But for like a team deathmatch, Ghost is better. I have to say, Ghost is more fun. Ghost is, as bad as it is, it's still a pretty decent and fun time. I can have fun playing that game. I can get kills and actually have a good time, and that just isn't the case for number 9 and number 10. Anyways, my lordy, I have talked so much. I was thinking I was going to do all 10 in one video, but I am 37 minutes in, and I haven't even gotten to number 7. Clearly, I was not anticipating how much I would have to talk about and how many things I wanted to talk about in just this part. I highly doubt, or maybe I don't highly doubt, I may or may not upload this video this year. The next part will probably come out next year, probably January 2nd or 3rd or whatever. But, whew, I don't know how I'm going to edit this video together. God, there's just so many different things I talked about. I wanted to, I was thinking, I was going to talk a little bit about everything, and I was going to include some footage from every Call of Duty to show what I'm talking about, which I would like to. I would like to show you what I'm talking about while I'm talking about it, but my lord, I have just talked so much about so many different things. I will definitely show it, but I'll just take screenshots from like the Call of Duty Call of Duty wiki or something, because I don't actually have Advanced Warfare and Call of Duty Ghosts anymore, so I'd have to look up videos and do all that stuff. Yikes. Alright. Hope you enjoyed this part. There is another 2 parts coming. I'll give you a little bit of a spoiler alert. You will be probably very surprised at number 4. It is you'll be surprised. I don't want to spoil it, but man, you probably will not agree with me whatsoever, and that's totally fine. Anyways, take it easy, guys. Stay tuned for my next part whenever that comes out.